Good to see everyone bopping along at the end of that. Hi, welcome into the Irish NFL show presented by Cassidy Travel. Um, week 7. Welcome into everyone watching. 7 weeks into the season. Michael McQueen, Colin Cronin, Mark Cockrell, Brian O'Leary. Colin, start off with you. How's the form? How you getting on?
Good. Yeah, we're one third of the way, obviously, through the season, and there are a host of games this coming weekend that I think are real coin flip games. So I think it's going to be interesting to see who people pick and the reasons for those picks.
How's it going, Brian? You alright?
I'm great, guys. Looking forward to the start of another exciting weekend. Big game tonight. Saints and the Cardinals. Want to whet your appetite for what's looks like, as Colin said, a big weekend ahead of games and interesting subplots to get through tonight. Yeah, very interesting to see who everybody picks in these little games that are very low. If you look at the point spreads on some of these games, are very low. It's very hard for the bookmakers to separate them. They'll be separated tonight, I imagine. Mixed opinions here, I guess, at some stage.
I'm sure there will be some controversial moments as always. Mark, for everyone listening, obviously welcome in. For everyone listening or watching us live, especially in terms of Thursday night, everybody apart from me went with the Cardinals. I went with the Saints. So that podcast is available now, but a warm welcome into you.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Of course, this is NSYNC week in the NFL because for the first week we have bye, with 4 teams having a bye. So unfortunately for us, those teams happen to be the Bills and the Eagles, who have been 2 of the best teams in the NFL, and the Rams and the Vikings, who, even if they haven't been the best teams, are always entertaining in what they're going through. So that removes some of the games and some of the quality this week, but allows us to use our pop culture references. Michael, I know you're a big NSYNC fan, big JT fan.
Big NSYNC fan. Liz Truss is a big NSYNC fan today as well. Bye. Anyway, let's get into it. We're going to quick fire 4 games. And the first game we're going to look at ahead of week 7 of the season is a game that's on Sky Sports this week. The Sky Sports went with the Niners against the Falcons last week. This week they're going with a different game. The Browns at the Ravens. Both teams lost in week 6. And Colin, this is a really intriguing game because the Browns have not had a, really poor start to the season. They've found a way in certain weeks. The Ravens have a shocking defeat last week against a Giants team, which we'll talk about in a bit. Which I watched the game back, just blitzed them, and Lamar Jackson couldn't cope. So that's concerning if you're a Ravens fan going forward, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, the divisional game in the division where no team has a winning record. So, and it's certainly the way in which the Ravens have ended games is a huge concern. A tweet, Jake Trotter, who said the Ravens are the first team in NFL history to hold a double-digit lead in each of their first 6 games and yet not have a winning record. It is quite something when you consider where they have been in games and how they have managed to lose it in almost in different ways. Obviously the Giants putting incredible pressure on Lamar, the Dolphins with this phenomenal kind of offensive resurgence to get the win. But this, I think, is absolutely must win for the Ravens, more so than the Browns, because the Ravens come into it having their QB in his contract year. There is, expectations, and Ravens fans, Harbaugh's done a phenomenal job there. But you could see in terms of Marcus Peters, who likes to let his emotions show on the field and hasn't taken the Justin Jefferson lesson where, you need to keep your emotions in check. But you can sense there is some frustration amongst the Ravens players, and Lamar talked about it this week. And I suppose if you're a Ravens fan, you're looking at it and the fact they haven't lost consecutive games to Browns since 2007. When Brian Billick was the Ravens head coach. So I am going to say that the Ravens are going to right the ship a little bit, and they are going to get a hard-fought victory against the Browns.
the Browns aren't a very popular team, really, are they? For bearing in mind what's gone on in the off season and taking the flyer on Sean Watson. And I know a few Browns fans. Actually spoke to them, a few of them this week, and they're pleasantly surprised by what Jacoby Brissett has done. Like, he's not the issue right now. Defensively is the issue, and that's where, for me, it's quite a surprise, because a lot of us felt that this Browns defense could do a job this year to hold them in a lot of games. And okay, they've lost a lot of close games, but the points in which they've given away, I mean, they gave away 38 last week, a lot of late points for the Patriots, 30 the previous week against the Chargers, 23 against the Falcons offense that's playing really well this season. They're giving up an average of 131 yards, on the run game, which last season wasn't what they were doing. And okay, the Ravens haven't got the best of run games. In fairness, Drake had a really good game last week. Bearing in mind the Giants won, he ran for over 125 yards, and Lamar, on his day, he's a very effective runner. He's their most explosive player, really. If you look at the rushing yards this season, 451 yards, 2 touchdowns. He is their running back, essentially. Jacoby's had a good season, but in this game, I'm with Colin on this. I think the Ravens, they got to win this. The pressure's on. I think they'll rebound after last week and find a way to win. I don't think it'll be pretty, but I think they'll get over the line.
Yeah, the Ravens are finding amazing ways to lose games, aren't they? It is quite, Colin called it out, quite exceptional, the way they've thrown games away in relation to it. Like Brian, I do know a couple of Browns fans. One of the biggest Browns fans I know is a funeral director. And I think that really sums it all up and everything. He's used to depressing circumstances, death and destruction. And, other than the green shoots of hope that the Browns were springing up in the last couple of years, I think any of that goodwill, any of that joy of like seeing a once great franchise come back to life has pretty much been diminished for most neutrals with their actions during the off-season. To me, this is always difficult to call. It's an AFC North rivalry game. These games are usually very tight, whether it's Pittsburgh and the Ravens, whether it's, the Browns and the Steelers, the Browns and the Ravens and everything. These teams play each other twice a year. They know the schemes. They know the history. They fight each other, to the death, Princess Bride style. And the problem, however, if you remember Inigo Montoya, is that the Ravens can win this game still fighting left-handed. The reality is they should, and that's the important word, completely outclass the Browns and get back onto winning ways. By doing so, they have to actually perform and show up in the fourth quarter. Every single metric other than Justin Tucker's kicking ability has dropped off the cliff for the Ravens. I do think they're a better team than what they've shown, however, in some of their defeats in the last few weeks. And you have to give credit to the Dolphins for an amazing comeback. You have to give credit to the Giants last week for, making the plays necessary and containing Lamar on both sides of the ball. Real good complementary football. And the Ravens have too much talent. They've got too good a head coach, much as I sometimes dislike John Harbaugh and his whining. He's a bloody good coach. And for that reason, this is their get-right game. They will win this game. They will win this game by 3 touchdowns and really make a statement and re-energize their campaign this year to finally get Lamar at least even into the FC Championship game. That would be nice, guys.
You mean the Super Bowl this year? I'm joking.
The championship game, Michael. Never even got to that level, as far as I can remember, because he's never won enough playoff games to get to that.
See, and that's what I was going to say. Like the expectation and the imagery of Coach Harbaugh in Baltimore is like that of the Messiah, and the respect that they have for him. They look at him in the same way that they look at Mike Tomlin, which is one aspect. You can't cover over the cracks. They've got a bottom 5 pass defense that ranks 5th worst in the NFL at the minute. They've got 41% of a third down conversion rate on their offense with the weapons that they have. It's inexcusable. Last week for them, everyone's slagging Green Bay all week and saying they've got serious issues. The Ravens had a decent lead in New York or in New Jersey last weekend, and no one's really talking about it in terms of the mainstream media. That being said, I think week 7 this week is going to be the week that we see teams for what they're really worth. I think this game will be one of those. And I agree with Mark. I think this will be a 2 or 3 touchdown win for the Ravens. I feel that the Ravens will stop the run on the Browns, and I don't think the Browns have got the assets or any sort of fight in them to take the Ravens far. I still think the Ravens will considerably comfortably win their division. But this week, I'll take them to beat the Browns, and that's my pick.
If the Ravens were comfortable with all the weapons in which we say they have, they wouldn't be taking a flyer on Deshaun Jackson and bringing him in and signing him immediately. So I don't think that they're comfortable with Bateman and Duberry, or whatever way you want to pronounce his surname. Last year he was a special teams player. Now all of a sudden he's been thrown in as one of their main wide receivers. They don't have an explosive threat, in my opinion, that can do it consistently. Deshaun Jackson's probably past his sell by date, but he'll still get a chance to prove himself. But why would they be doing this if there wasn't panic, a certain bit of panic or concern around how well their offense is played outside of Lamar?
They could lose the next 12 games and Harbour will still have a job. That's the problem in Baltimore. And eventually, whether that's next year or the year after, it'll come to...
he has... I want to say he has won the Super Bowl. And he's coached a perennial playoff team. And
absolutely. But there have been issues over the last 2 or 3 years. Big time. There was considerable discontent last year at certain points. And he was then given a considerably large new contract. And of course, there's a lot of respect there and it's important for continuity. However, at the minute, in certain games this season, they have underperformed. Certain players have underperformed. Certain players have excelled. It just depends. But they'll win this game comfortably. In terms of bringing in Deshaun Jackson, it's just it's ridiculous. It's like the merry-go-round. I'd love to see his stats. Can someone get his stats for the last 2 or 3 seasons, please? Because I'd love to see it. I would go as far as saying he hasn't scored more than 5 touchdowns in the last 5 years. It's pathetic. I don't get it. Anywho, let's move on. Let's move on. So we're all in agreement. So that's a good start. Falcons at the Bengals. Both teams. It's hard to believe, Colin. The Falcons are 3-3. I think a lot of us, including myself, thought they would be bottom of their division. Looking at the stats, though, it's clear that the reason why they're sitting 3-3 and they're doing all right, their coach is coaching them to the absolute bollocks. He's flying high. Arthur Smith, and Brian Dable's probably the runaway candidate at the minute for Coach of the Year. But if the Falcons were sitting 4-2, I think there'd be as much of a conversation about it. Marcus Mariota looks reborn. He looks good on the offense. Obviously, they're relying too much on the run, but this is a Falcons team that have overperformed. But this week they're going into Cincinnati and going up against a Bengals team that, frankly, needs to win this game to go into a more positive record during the season.
Yeah, I think probably the Falcons, maybe even more so than the Seahawks, so it's close, have surprised, right? The Giants are up there as well. But this is a team who nobody was kind of giving it a chance before the season. And remember, they've also have $77 million in dead cap. Now, they brought that on themselves in terms of Matt Ryan and trying to get Deshaun Watson. But $77 million in dead cap, and Arthur Smith is doing a heck of a job, you would have to say. They're, especially on offense, they're going about things in a very different way. But overall, I suppose we're seeing passing is down across the league this year. Points are down across the league this year. And the Falcons are a team who have brought in a rushing QB, and they have found ways to win games. They're going up against, I suppose, a Bengals side, who have struggled at times, but have found form over the past few games. And the Falcons actually have, while they talked about the great rushing attack, their run defense has been really, really good, but their pass defense hasn't been. And that, I think, could potentially be the big difference in this. Also, one of the things that the Bengals have been doing that's maybe sneaky good, I saw Warren Sharp tweet about this, is their third quarter defense has been absolutely exceptional. They've allowed 22 points in the last 14 games. So the adjustments that they're making at halftime are brilliant. If their offense was even half as good at making those defense, and that's the offensive coaching, not the players, then they would be absolutely flying. I think they will eke it out, but I do not expect it to be a blowout, because I think the Falcons are, going to stick around. I just think that Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow are finding form at this stage of the season, and they'll probably have enough.
Brian, I think the Bengals are 6.5 in the handicap, so 1 touchdown, give or take. I wouldn't be confident of that, regardless of your selection for this game.
Well, the Falcons, like Colin touched on it there, they're, in terms of the run game, they're the third best rushing offense in the league, but a large part of that's down to the fact that Mariota is also contributing, like Lamar does for the Ravens, and he only threw the ball 12 times last week. So it's efficient offense. Let's not put ourselves in jeopardy. Let's not put ourselves in harm's way to lose the game, or certainly put ourselves in a position where we're having pick sixes or interceptions, and let's just play a methodical game and see how it goes. They're tortured in the league though, defensively. I know Colin was called out good against the run, poor in the passing game. And for me, in a passing game where, in fairness to the Bengals, the one thing to do well is they've got explosive players. T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Chase, running backs on the day that can get out on the perimeter and take screen passes. And I that's where I see the down. That's where I see the flaw in this game for this Falcons team. Can they live with this Bengals offense that seems to be getting right? I've even looked at 3 defeats. Like me included, have been critical of the Bengals at times. But I looked at 3 defeats: Steelers on a field goal, Cowboys on a field goal, and the Ravens on a field goal. I mean, things could have been very different for this team if things swing other ways for them. But they're 3-3. I'm with the Bengals in this game. I think it's too big an ask for a Falcons team that I have been impressed with. I didn't think they'd come bottom of the division. I predicted the Panthers to be bottom of the division. I felt they would surprise us and win more games, and they have done. But this is a bigger level now. The Bengals are a playoff team, and will probably play like a playoff team and win this game.
Yeah, the Bengals are a playoff team, but they've got to set the alarm clock finally. I mean, if we want a political reference to Liz Truss, why not? It's topical today. I mean, she should have woken up when she got the premiership. She should have woken up when the mini budget went down like a lead balloon. She should have woken up when she fired her chancellor. She should have woken up when Sula Braverman left. And she definitely should have woken up this morning when she's getting a tap on the shoulder and realized the writing was on the wall. The problem with this Bengals team is if it's the first half, they're still asleep. They actually play, and talking about all the exciting talents they have, they actually look half asleep in the first half of games this year. It's a good thing they've got such a great third quarter defense because, frankly, they need it every time. They are almost exclusively playing from behind. And if they keep boxing themselves into that corner, it is going to be a problem. Now, do I think it's going to be a problem this week? Well, it could be because the Falcons, as Colin rightly called out, both teams are both 3-3. We didn't expect the Bengals to be this low, but we definitely didn't expect the Falcons to be this high. So, yes, huge credit to Arthur Smith and to Marcus Mariota and that whole team. But one of the fundamental facts, I think, for both of these teams, it's all about the O-line. The Falcons O-line has actually been very good. And so good in the sense of protecting Mariota when needs to be, carving holes in the running game. And that is why the Falcons have been surprisingly quite a good offense. I think it's the biggest contributor as opposed to the skill players. And the Bengals O-line started the season like they, just woke up from the Super Bowl the day before, even with the investments, even with the changes they've made. Over the last 6 weeks, have we started to see progress on that? Yes. Do they still need to get a lot better to be a proper playoff contender and potentially repeat their journey to the Super Bowl this year? Absolutely. But overall, do I think that, especially in Cincinnati, that they've got enough to handle this surprising Falcons team? Yes, I do. But never say never with these Falcons. They're going to be the surprise package, and I think we've underestimated them too much at our peril. I will say this, though. Arthur Smith came out with a really interesting line, which is very true. He said, hey, you know what? You look at the stats. We've been blown off the field. Last week against 49ers, we were, at yardage gains with huge gaps. And yeah, we ranked 29th against the pass and 31st against the run or whatever it was. He called it and he said, but we do good situational defense. And you can say that's bend, don't break. You can say that's they get the key play at the key time. Generally, he's been accurate in relation to that. And they've been playing very united as a team. But I can't see past the Bengals this week. I just think they have too much talent. They're starting to gel. They're starting to get the O-line. Just get the alarm clocks out and wake up in the first quarter for a change and make your life so much easier. So much easier. Look at poor Liz. Come on.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about Liz Truss is somebody tweeted me saying that the Eagles have not lost a game while she was Prime Minister. So thank you for that, whoever your name was. I appreciate that. I think it's important to speculate, and well, not speculate, but just to note that the Niners team that the Falcons were playing last week were unbelievably banged up to the point where I'm actually concerned at the amount of people they have out. And we'll talk about this game later on in this broadcast, but they should take their own bye and just let the Chiefs walk over them this week, because the division that they're in is a joke anyway. We'll talk about that later on. The Falcons, though, they've got a really, really good young core there with Drake London and Cal Pitts, and it was great to see Cal Pitts finally get a touchdown last week. Mariota, as I said, looks more mobile, and the reality is it's Arthur Smith coaching this team and taking them past what they're actually able to do. They still need a long-term answer at quarterback, in my opinion. And I think they've reached their limit. I know we've talked about it being a surprise. I think teams will start to find them out over the next couple of weeks. But they've done really well to get to this situation. They'll probably get another 3 or 4 wins this season, maybe 5. And that's as far as they'll get. In terms of this game, the Bengals need to win. Simple as that. The game's at home. Burrow needs to go out and put a performance in, run the ball, get the ball down to Jamar. Easy as. This win will be a 10 to 14 point win for the Bengals. The next game we're going to look at is the Giants against the Jags. Call them the Giants 5-1, Jags 2-4, I think, if I'm correct. Really intriguing game because we're coming into week 7. Jags, who started out and had that game in LA, was it week 3, week 4, looked really, really good. Have went off a little bit. Lawrence looked a bit rusty week 4 and week 5. What's your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, the Jags had a couple of good weeks and then some 3 really bad weeks in a row. Now, I don't think last week was at all on Trevor Lawrence, whereas the week before had been. I thought he was quite impressive last week, in fairness to him. And this will be a tough matchup. The Jags have the 3rd fewest yards allowed against the run, which is obviously a strength for the Giants. The Giants top 10 against the pass. So you're kind of nullifying each other's strengths there in some ways. We'll have to see, I suppose, how the Jags can do on the ground. Travis Etienne came more into the game last week. He has yet to really have an absolute breakout game. So could that be this week? We'll have to see. But yeah, one of the things about it is, and this is where I think testament to Brian Daboll's coaching. The Jags are 2-4, but their point differential is plus 24, and a lot of that is because of that Chargers game. The Giants are 5-1, and their point differential is plus 14. So in close games, the Giants seem to get it done. I think for me, this could come down to Foley Fatukasi for the Jags and whether he is fit. He is enormously important to them against the run. If he is fit, they have a chance of shutting down Saquon. And if they do that, they will win. But we don't know if he's going to be fit. He's missed the last 2. And if he's not in, I think the Giants will edge it. I'm going to go with the Giants because they have the momentum, but I would not be shocked at all if the Jags got the win. But for me, the Giants this weekend.
Michael, you touched on earlier on the fact that, having watched the game back, you said Lamar was blitzed heavily in last week's game. 69.7% of all defensive plays by the Giants last week was blitz-oriented plays. And I imagine why get away from what works? And that's what Trevor Lawrence is going to see on Sunday. And can this offensive line match up against it? This will be the 4th weekend in which the Giants have every defensive player available since the start of the season, and complemented with Landon Collins potentially making his 2nd debut this weekend. He was going to play in a linebacker role as opposed to a free safety, which he did previously. I'm struggling to see why I wouldn't pick the Giants. And yeah, I can see the concerns around Barkley, and they are very efficient up front in terms of trying to stop the run. And you look at Giants' wide receiver core, it isn't great, but they're just finding ways to get things done at the moment. And that's where I'm going. I just think right now, who do I trust more? Do I trust the Jags team that have lost 3 in a row, and defensively, once they've been quite sound this season, they allowed Matt Ryan to go up and down the field on him last week in the last 5 drives of the game were all scores. And I know it's not reflective of what will happen on Sunday, but right now you're asking which defence I trust more. I think the Giants are more likely to shut the Jags down as opposed to them shutting the Giants down. Think it'll be close. Still think going into the late in the fourth could go one way or the other, but I just think the Giants will find a way to get over the line and get to 6-1.
Do you know, it was that goddamn Eagles game. Quarter into the Eagles game, and the Jags were up. They looked like a mean machine, and we were, half into the Eagles game, they were still up. And we're looking at it going, hey, maybe we've had them all wrong. Maybe we've been underestimating them still, even though they'd started the season quite well. And of course, the Eagles came back, annihilated them in that game. Trevor Lawrence had his, I think that was the 5 turnover game with the 4 fumbles and the interception. And they haven't looked the same since. And they've had, as the guys have alluded to, a couple of bad weeks following on from that. But, if you're looking for hope for the Jaguars fan, I think there's a very clear one. Travis Etienne had a couple of really solid games, putting over 100 yards from scrimmage, whether rushing the ball or out of the backfield. James Robinson starting to find the end zone again. And if they can lean on that 1-2 punch at running back, that is actually one of the weaknesses potentially in this Giants defense. They're ranking 28th against the rush. That is potentially the soft middle you can exploit, and maybe what the Jags have to pound away at to take advantage of in this particular game. Now, the reality is there is one of the greatest streaks of futility that has ever occurred. The Jaguars have not beaten an NFC team for 18 straight games. In fact, you have to go back to 2018, incidentally, the last time Deshaun Jackson had any decent stats, to find a scenario when they won. Who did they beat in 2018? The Giants in their season opener. So if you're a Jags fans and you're looking for omens, there's your omens. There's the benefit. But if you're a Giants fan, I'll share with you what I shared with Brian very recently, which is the last couple of times I've been watching the Giants, for the first time in about 6 years, I've actually had belief that they could come back into the game. Like against the Packers, I actually nearly texted him in London first quarter and said, I think you're still going to win this game. Against the Ravens last week, it was the fourth quarter. They were 10 points down, but it's like they actually could put 2 drives together and stop the Ravens and win this game. And as a neutral fan who doesn't love nor hate the Giants, even though I should despise them for the rest of their lives for what they did in 2 Super Bowls, the reality is I have not thought that for 1 second during the Daniel Jones era. I've not thought about that about the Giants for 6 years, that they had any hope of coming back in games. It was, inevitable they would crush to defeat. So the fact that they've turned that around in 6 games at the start of the season already indicates they're going in the right direction. I can believe in them that they're going to keep it rolling for another week. They're going to go to 6-1, and that NFC Beast division continues to be very, very, very competitive.
Sorry, I was just checking something. I agree with what you're saying, Ollie. I think it's a really intriguing game on Sunday because you've got 2 teams that have really improved on both sides of the ball in the last year. Giants are going in the right direction. The Jaguars finally have a coach which can help them take them to the next level. Obviously, they go big in Christian Kirk, and Trevor Lawrence is starting to get decent reps, and it's going to be a journey for them this season. On Tuesday, I watched the 4th quarter of the Giants-Packers game, and then I watched the game from last week. I think what Wink Martindale is doing in terms of his aggressive blitzing and the aggressive defense is excellent. But I also feel that it's a sign of a team that, has its limits, and a defense that has its limits. And I feel that the Giants could probably go in this weekend to Jacksonville and win very well if they blitz. But it's going to come to week 8 or week 9, and eventually it's going to fall off the cliff either in 2 elements. One, teams will find out about it and find a way to stop it, or the most likely situation, 2, players start getting injured. And thank God that hasn't happened for them, and it's working very, very well for them. And I think the thing that is most impressive about the Giants for me is they're utilising their talent at every position, and they're getting the most out of them. And that's why Brian Daboll at the minute will probably be coach of the year. I think in terms of the offense, I just think on paper the Jaguars have the better offense on its day. They can get the ball down the field more than Daniel Jones can, and the weapons that he has in the offense. I do think it'll be close, but I'm going to take the Jags by 4.5, 5 points in this game. And I'm really intrigued to see what the defense will be like for the Giants, and hopefully they can just keep this up, because they're going to make the neutral games more interesting to watch, and long may that continue. But I've fallen to 5-2 this week. The next game we're going to look at is Titans Colts. Yeah, everyone nod and agree. I genuinely call them at the point of sitting here. I can't pick a winner for this game, so please put me in a good mood and tell me who to pick.
Well, I will say this is the only game this week featuring two teams with a winning record. So there is that to I suppose whet the appetite. But Mike Herndon asked this question on Twitter, and I'm going to ask you three gentlemen. If the Bills are the best team in the AFC West and the Chiefs are the second best team, who's the third best team? Is it the Jets, the 4-2 Jets? Is it the 4-2 Chargers? Is it the 3-2 Titans? 3-2-1 Colts? The Ravens? The Bengals? Michael, third best team in the AFC. Mark.
Ravens.
Brian.
I would probably say Mark on the side of Ravens as well.
Michael.
Statistically, the Colts are the best city.
It's obviously not the Ravens statistically, but on paper, Chargers.
I think you can make a fair case for all of them. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. I would say that you would be hard probably pressed to say anyone, because I think everyone is struggling a little bit right now. But I do think that Mike Vrabel has done once again a phenomenal job with what he has at his disposal with the Titans, and they have won 4 straight against the Colts. I think if the Colts could play in the manner of with the aggression that their owner showed this week, when in fairness he showed a solid backbone and came out and took a position against Dan Schneider and the ridiculous situation of his ownership of a multi-billion-dollar franchise in the NFL, they would go a long, long way. I just don't trust the Colts to do it. I'd love to see the Colts, pick the Colts to win the division. But, and I think, in fairness, Frank Reich has done a decent enough job there, but I don't trust their interior line. I think going up against a Titans D-line that even with the injuries has been impressive. I can see the Titans winning this.
We had a conversation about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I think it was the weekend leading up to the Chiefs Colts game when I picked the Colts, and we were all very down on Matt Ryan and how he's performing, and we all agreed that we expected much better from him. And I just said, we need to get a game where he doesn't get held down because the offensive line struggles, where he doesn't be sacked time and time again, and see what his numbers were. And that was last weekend. He wasn't sacked once in the game, 374 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a number of drives. And I suppose we can put it down to the Jags defense that was poor on its day. And I looked at defense in this game, and I know the Titans played one less because they've had their boy. 11 defense against 12th ranked. The numbers are so close. Even if you look at the run defense, pass defense, they're so close. So in theory, I should be picking the Colts. I'm picking the Titans because, like Colin, I don't trust the Colts from one week to the next to go in and can see until we see a consistent performance week in, week out. We can take away the game in Denver the week before that. Let's be fair, it was a shambles of a game for both sides, unfortunately. It's Titans for me. They're coming off the bye. Derrick Henry ran for 122 yards, 2 touchdowns 2 weeks ago in Washington. He had a good game when they went into Indianapolis. They've already played each other. Titans won that time. I think Titans will find a way this Sunday to win. It won't be pretty, but they'll get the job done.
We've talked about it earlier in the season. The Titans are nowhere near the team they were last year. They lost a lot of key contributors. They've lost a lot of talent, obviously at wide receiver, but also in their defense. However, as Colin rightly alludes to, Mike Vrabel is coaching them up with what he's got. And the team we see now in week 6, week 7 of the NFL is a far cry from what we saw to start the season in week 1, week 2. And there are a few coaches in the league that their teams always improve as the season goes on. There are some coaches that they tend to regress with. But he is doing a phenomenal job, and he's making the most of what he can do. I mean, it's a typical example when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Their linebackers aren't anything special. Their secondary is a walking liability. But one thing they do have still, in my mind, is a very strong defensive line. And that is the killer here, because that defensive line will overwhelm still a porous Colts offensive line. Yes, they held off the Jags last week, and yes, they gave Matt Ryan an opportunity to stay upright, and God knows, even a hole or two for Jonathan Taylor to exploit. But that's been their fatal flaw, and I still bank on the Titans at home to exploit that. And yet, let Derrick Henry run away. Titans will maintain the whip hand in this rivalry. Well, actually, do the Colts have to win sometimes to call it a rivalry? I'll just call it a divisional game. They'll maintain the whip hand in this regard, and the Titans will win this one.
This is a huge game for this division down the stretch, because you can't trust the Jaguars week on week, and it's going to be very interesting to see who wins this game. For me, the Titans are the 5th worst in passing offense in the league. They're nothing special. They haven't been special in a few weeks, and I understand they're coming off a bye, but the Colts are averaging 349.8 yards per game in offense so far this season, and as far as I'm concerned, if they can stop Derrick Henry on Sunday, they'll win the game, and I think they've turned the corner somehow, and I'm picking the Colts, and I genuinely find it disbelieving that nobody else is picking them, but I look like an idiot on Sunday night whenever they win.
Well,
the Titans.
Michael, you only have to go back a couple of weeks for the Titans to beat the Colts. Let's remember, this is the second time these teams are playing, so they've already beaten the Colts in Indy.
Oh yeah. I'm talking about
this is the other alternative. So yeah. I get you. You're picking the Colts. Fair enough.
I think we were split. Was it 2-2 a few weeks ago? I think we were split, weren't we? I can't remember. I think we were.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I know. I think I was a lot higher on the Colts prior to the season beginning, and yeah, I was impressed last week by what Frank Reich was able to do. Frank Ryan, I'm thinking of the bar in Smithfield, but I just overall I have been very disappointed, and I can't get over that performance that they put in against the Broncos, where that
game never happened. Let's talk that game out of existence. The Titans are so poor in third down call. That's the thing. They're so poor.
But yeah, both of these teams definitely have issues, and you would be very hard pressed, I think, to make the case that either of them will be a force in the playoffs.
I think you only have to look at our selections on all the Colts games this season. I don't think any of us picked them the night they went in December. I was the only one who picked them last week. There was other weeks when they got selected. There's inconsistencies there. There's no trust. There's no trust right now. They need to go on a run of 2 or 3 games for us to really feel the love again for this Colts team.
Let's go quick fire. We've got 4 games to look at. Colm will look at the Bucs Panthers. Brian's going to look at the Lions Cowboys. Mark is going to look at the Packers at the Commanders, and Michael is going to look at the Texans at the Raiders. We know the score by now. Somebody talks about it and we give one word. Anything more than a word, you're off. You're not coming back on again. That includes me. Go, Colm. You've got Bucs Panthers. Go for it.
The Panthers are almost at a 50% chance of the number 1 overall pick, which tells you where their season is. And the Bucs need a victory. So I'm not going to even talk about that. I'm going to talk about a piece that came out during the week about Matt Rule's tenure. That last year, Matt Rule went away on his planned bye-week vacation when the Panthers were in free fall, having brought Cam Newton back into the fold just a fortnight before. While the former Baylor man went off for some rest and relaxation, Joe Brady, the then OC, spent his time in the building assisting the 2015 NFL MVP to pick up the offense in a bid to turn the fortunes around. Rule got back and fired Joe Brady. That tells you all you need to know. That was allowed to happen. That is one tiny bit of the dysfunction that David Tepper and all his billions have allowed to fester in Carolina. He may have cleared out Matt Rule and that coaching staff. It's going to take a lot longer to put the pieces back together. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will not need to get angry this week. They are winning this game.
Buccaneers.
He's on mute. He said Buccaneers.
I got there. I said Buccaneers.
Buccaneers. Brian, who have you got? Game-wise.
Dak Prescott's coming back this week. I'd expect we'll see an immediate reaction. CeeDee Lamb hasn't had... He's been okay. He hasn't... I just feel the way they played his offense recently is very methodical stuff. It's geared towards Cooper Rush's ability. I think we'll see a bit more of an expansive offense. For the Cowboys, they're going up against a very weak defense in Detroit. They've had their bye week to reevaluate and get ready for this game, but I still think the flaws are there. I think with Dak back, Zeke Elliott's actually having a better season than people think. He had a good game last week in the second half, 85 yards plus touchdown the game against the Giants. Pollard is starting to hit the ground running. They're giving him more to play. And defensively, I said a few weeks ago that the Patriots would shut out that Lions team. And I can see a manner in which the Cowboys could do this on Sunday. Micah Parsons, 11 sacks in 11 home games. They're very strong defensively. Diggs will be looking to get in there and get a few picks on Goff. I don't see this any other way than a Cowboys victory.
Cowboys.
Jerry. Mark, what game are you looking at?
So I'm looking at the Pack versus the Commanders, and it's interesting with all the angst going on around Green Bay Packers and, we're not winning, and, this is terrible, and, we've lost 2 games in a row for the first time in Matt LaFleur's era. All the attention seems to be focusing on Aaron Rodgers and the offense, and he's not syncing with his receivers. I want to draw attention to the fact that this team in the first 3 weeks of the season looked like it was going to be carried for a while on its run game and its defense. And over time, Rodgers and the receivers would find a way to get it going. I actually think that's not the worst thing in the world, given that some of the balance that they've had a challenge with in Green Bay in seasons gone past. But you look at the last 3 games, the Pack have given up 24, 27, and 27 points to the Patriots, the Jets, and the Giants. And while I'm very admirable of the renaissance in the Giants and the Jets and everything, you would not say they are 3 of the more high-powered offenses in the National Football League. The defense hasn't been holding its side of the bargain. And people will throw up the stats as like, well, they rank number 1 against the pass of defense, that they're the best third down defense in the NFL. Great, but if you're giving up points on first and second down, third down doesn't do you much use, does it? So for all the attention on the offense, and yes, I'm very conscious of the fact they've scored 10 points on offense in the last 6 quarters they've played. For all that attention, people aren't focusing enough that the Packers defense has to come to the party and come back to the party in a hurry to help them out. The good news for them, they're playing the Commanders. And we've seen the Commanders offense and the inability of that in various guises at various times. We are expecting Heineke to play. Commanders have already given up on him a couple of times and not given him the starting gig. So unfortunately, they've already indicated their feelings on him. And whilst there is talent in Washington, poor Ron Rivera and all of that staff are still dealing with the stench coming from the ownership layer. And we've said it before on this show. There are a lot of things that matter for an NFL team. Of course, coaching matters. Of course, special teams matter. But you know what? Ownership matters as well. And what the players have to deal with, what they have to deal with in the press, what they have to deal with in terms of the atmosphere, the environment, all the sports staff, that matters just as much as well. For that reason, it's a great matchup for Green Bay to get back on track, although we said the same last week and we said the same the week before. But I can't see past the Packers righting the ship somewhat and hopefully getting back to a bit more consistency from their perspective.
Packers.
Commanders.
I'm off. Jesus. Lads.
That was more than one word, Michael.
Just give me 10 seconds.
Tyler Heineke had a great game in Green Bay last year and should have won the game if it wasn't for a fumble on the 1 yard line. He went up and down the field on that night. He's going to do the same on Sunday.
can you send me what you're smoking? Because I actually need it now.
I don't need smoking. Just go and watch the footage of last
Talking
year's
about
game.
smoking, I was going to say Joe Rogan as my pick. Packers. Thank you. That was a fun session. We're going from fun to another. I actually would have loved to have a full discussion about the Lions Cowboys game. And I'm sorry, Brian, we didn't mention that in the betting podcast. That's going to go over. More than 45 points. You heard it here first, folks. Bet responsibly.
Cowboys
4-2 Jets. Going to Mile High, playing the 2-4 Broncos. I guess that's the time we're recording. We're not actually sure if Russell Wilson will fully play or not. After that Subway video, I hope he doesn't. There's a new one tonight. Check it out on my Twitter account for the engagements and interactions. Colin, what's your thoughts on this game? Jets had a fantastic performance on both sides of the ball last week, mainly their defense. But Sauce Gardner enjoys his cheese.
Yeah, Jets have been young team, very impressive, and they. For me, I suppose for them, it's going to probably come down to the run game. The Broncos' defense has been very good, other than that Raiders game, and Zach Wilson doesn't tend to like playing under pressure, so I imagine you'll see plenty of pressure come on him. Look, for the Broncos, James Palmer tweeted earlier, the Broncos have 7 offensive touchdowns. That puts them in a 3-way tie with Nick Chubb and Travis Kelce. When even James Palmer is taking the mick out of you, you are the laughing stock across the league. People are saying that the Broncos should be banned from primetime. When your running back sulks on the sideline, and then you find out afterwards that no one even decided to have a conversation with him to tell him that he wouldn't play in the second half, he starts liking tweets about being traded. And then your coach goes up to the podium and says, oh, he's going to start this week. When your QB has a very real injury that's causing very real pain, but then your offensive coordinator gets to the podium and says, well, we're preparing Russell Wilson, Brett Rippon, and Josh Johnson. So we're preparing all 3. Great. But apparently he hasn't left the facility. This is the offensive coordinator. This is the alpha male stuff. He hasn't left the facility. He has slept in the facility, and he takes pride in the fact that he hasn't seen his family this week. I do not know what's going on in Denver. It is somebody needs to take hold of things, because that is we are back in the Vance Joseph era of when a microphone is put in front of a member of the coaching staff, it is becoming increasingly embarrassing. I cannot pick the Broncos this week, though I do think they actually match up quite well against the Jets, but I can't do it. The Jets should, and the expectation for Jets fans should be that you go in to Mile High on Sunday and you turn over the Broncos.
Jeez, sorry, I was just a bit shocked there.
Sorry to all the podcast listeners for the soothing ASMR North Dublin tones.
Zach Wilson had 10 completions in the entirety of the game last week. The Jets are playing a particular offense where they just don't want him to make any mistakes or mess up, because they're so reliant on such a strong defense to win the games for them. And for large parts of the game, that was the same way in which it played out last week and the week prior to that, because the Dolphins put up 17 points and they blew them away in the fourth quarter with 3 touchdowns. In fairness, the game got away from the Dolphins. But this season is very much around the Jets' defense and how strong they are. And Quillen Williams having a fantastic season, 2 sacks last week. But the Broncos' defense, despite all the stuff that Collins alluded to, all the background noise and all the stuff about Russell Wilson, consistently the Broncos' defense has played really well this season, with the exception of the game in Vegas. And they played really well on Monday night. Herbert's highest completion was 22 yards to Williams, and he threw 57 times throughout the course of the game. They held him in check for large parts, and they really, on a better day, Broncos offensively should have won the game. And I think that's what will happen on Sunday. I think they'll stop this Jets defense, and then it's very much around, can the Broncos put enough drives together to win the game? They have to this week. We're getting to the last chance to learn there for the season, and I think they will. I think they'll find a way to get it done, and they'll address the flaws. And I keep trying to trusting them. I didn't trust them on Monday because I felt the Chargers offense would be very good. It wasn't, and they still lost the game. But I think they'll win the game on Sunday in Mile High against the Jets. So low scoring game, Broncos to come out the right side of it. Maybe a field goal win.
This is two of the best defenses in the NFL. Like, they're both serious units. I think, the first half of the Seattle game was a low spot for Denver when they started the season, but they've been extremely impressive since then. Justin Simmons coming back into the lineup as well has even raised it to another level. And like Brian said, like, they shut down the Chargers, who are still one of the better offenses in the league. The one thing I don't want to do, though, is dismiss the Jets offense. The Jets actually have been very impressive, especially when the game matters its most. They've had 5 turnovers in the fourth quarter on the defensive side, which we were all very impressed by, but they've actually outscored opponents 68-20 in the fourth quarter. They've put points on the board when it's really mattered. And yes, can you trust Zach Wilson? There's a fine question for you, and I would not be putting my life's earnings on him. But Breece Hall and that running game has been impressive. They have more talent. They have been protecting their quarterback. God forbid, that's a weird scenario. I mean, they even made Joe Flacco look good earlier on this season. So this ain't, used to say, like, this ain't your daddy's Jets. Like, this isn't even our Jets, guys. Again, like I said about the Giants, this isn't the Jets that we remember for the last decade, frankly, ever since Rex Ryan left the building. This team is actually good. God, that feels weird to say, but they're good. They're 4-2. They're right there. They're in a wild card slot. They're right up there with the Bills. They've overtaken the Dolphins, and they probably have every right to be there. So, whilst I have every respect for the Broncos defense, they've had to be that good because the offense is the worst in the league. It's the least points scored in the entire league, so they have to make up for the mess that's been created. And frankly, I just trust the Jets, and I can't say I'm saying these words, I trust the Jets offense more than I trust the Broncos offense. And I rate it roughly a draw on defense. So with that, I'm going to say that the following week, we're going to have the 2-5 Jacksonville Jaguars coming to London to play the 2-5 Denver Broncos when the New York Jets win this weekend.
I've said a few times over the last few weeks about how good it is to see Robert Saleh do so well, and they've given him the time to embed himself in that team, and it's only going to get better and better. And we've seen last week when I was talking about the offensive situations and how well he done in Green Bay, I meant the run. Breece Hall had more rushing yards than every running back for the Packers last week put together, and the confidence that they had, even though Zach Wilson didn't do incredibly well, they still got the win, and the defense looks legit. I think that's one element of it. I think the thing for the Broncos is I'd said on Monday night that I expect the blowout to come. I thought it would have been against the Chargers, but this defense can only take you so long. Colin has mentioned a few factors there about certain players, certain situations. A blowout is coming, whether it's this week or next week. The defense can be credited for playing very well. That's great, but it's not going to win you anything unless you can actually score points. I think the more concerning thing is, outside of this game, their head coach doesn't understand the basic rules of football. Doesn't understand X and O's. Doesn't understand how to count. And I think that's a major factor. I am of the belief, and I'm putting it now on record, that I believe the Jets will win on Sunday in a low-scoring game, probably like 19-10 or 19-12. And I really feel that Hackett will lose his job after London. I think he was brought in prior to the ownership situation taking over. They have spent a considerable amount of money and revamped their franchise on a quarterback which is not working yet, and all you have to do is just look at the situation in Seattle and look at the ways in which Russell Wilson was allowed to control his offense. And if you need to, in terms of trading the free agents, bring someone in, do whatever you need to do. They're not doing that, and as a result, Hackett will lose his job sooner rather than later. And I mean, they're lucky that the Raiders are 1-4. But yeah, in terms of the Jets, like you got to give them props. They've been enjoyable to watch on the defense side of the ball, especially, and they'll win this week, no problem at all. I do believe as well the Jaguars will win next week, but I'm giving everyone a warning because I'm not sure who will be on the broadcast next week. I'll pick the Jaguars so I don't get lynched in person. Sorry, I'll pick the Broncos so I don't get lynched in person next week, but I still don't think they'll win. Very disappointing on a personal side, but as a professional side here, the Jets will walk over them on Sunday. Not a lock of the week for me. Printing
lock of the week. I can't remember the last time the Jets we're all we're picked by 3 of the 4 people on this show. I think
it's obvious after watching what done to the Packers last week. I mean, the Packers' main problem is Rodgers can't get the ball down the field, and look what their defense done. Regardless,
Michael, I think it's a great day for the Garden State that New Jersey has both its teams doing so well again. So it's delightful to see.
And we've a lot of Jets fans giving us guff online. I don't want to hear one person now say anything negative about my picks in terms of the Jets.
The one thing the Broncos can do when they get it right is get the ball down the field. Jerry Judy's had 4 games in a row, 50+ yards. Cortland Sutton gets himself available. The players are there. The players are getting themselves in position.
But they can't score. Like, they can get the ball down in the red zone, but they can't score. Anyway, I would like to publicly apologise for not including the Raiders on the quick fire round. I think that's really, really rude of me. So we'll do a quick fire bonus podcast segment here. The Raiders, who are sitting 1-4 in the AFC West, are probably looking at that Jets game and licking their lips, thinking happy days, because if they lose now, they're going to try and move up. And fair play to them. They're only 3 games back from having an even record. The thing for the Texans so far this season is Davis Mills has played 5 games. He has a 62% completion rate, and he has had 4 interceptions. Another rookie quarterback or young quarterback in the league that's had 4 interceptions is Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett's got a 66.5% completion rate. So I have to give it to Kenny. He's doing better in terms of the stats there, even if he did get concussed a couple of times. Pierce is the main positive for this Texans team, but this is a Texans team in a massive building mode. They won't give Lovie Smith the time, unfortunately, I feel. But me and Brian talked about it on the betting podcast this week, which is available now on the podcast network. If you want to listen to it, please do feel free to. It's a bit of crack. This is a game in which the Raiders should potentially try and get down the field and score a lot of points. You got Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, and they need to try and get these guys down to score at least 14 to 21 to 28 points to defeat this Texans team and defeat them well. And I feel that our performance is coming for the Raiders. I'm going to pick the Raiders. Colin.
Raiders.
Say Texans.
Raiders.
Okay. I was waiting for like a Commanders-esque Texans pick there from Mark, but not coming. No one's okay. Okay, right. What's next?
Chargers.
Seattle.
Seattle against the Chargers. Geno Smith, per executive producer's notes, is the 2nd highest rated quarterback in the league. What a season it's been. What a season it's been. Where do you even go from that stat column? Geno Smith is the 2nd highest rated quarterback in the league. 64.5% completion rate, and he's the 2nd highest quarterback in the league.
Yeah, he's been fantastic through the first 6 weeks. He's been amazing. And if you want, on the other side of things, talk about a comparison. Tariq Woolen taken in the 5th round has been phenomenal. You could through the first 6 weeks, and there's time to go, but he's playing at like Sauce's level in terms of for a rookie cornerback. He's been brilliant. And if you were to compare that to the now, look, I say this with the caveat, I am a Broncos fan, recognize the Russell Wilson contract and trade, but my goodness, JC Jackson, Bill Belichick has done it again. He turned an average quarterback into an amazing stud asset, got him absolutely paid, and he went elsewhere. Brian talks about the Broncos being able to move the ball down the field. If JC Jackson hadn't been on the field the other night, it wouldn't have happened. He was an absolute liability. It was incredible. He looked like he'd never played football before. He looked more uncomfortable under the high ball than Patrice Evra on his debut against Man City when he got pulled at halftime. It was phenomenal. And the Chargers have somehow got to figure that out. I think the Chargers have some really nice pieces. I think injuries have taken their toll. I said it. I don't believe Mike Williams is WR1. I don't believe he is. I think he'd be fine if he was WR2. I don't think they have a speed threat. I think Justin Herbert is a fantastic QB, but I don't think they have the weapons around him. Seattle have absolutely coalesced around the Russell Wilson leaving. Their draft class has been brilliant in terms of the tackles. They will, like, their defense still has issues, undoubtedly. I just don't think the Chargers right now are in a position to take advantage of that. And I'm going to say that for this week, the Seahawks roll on and they get the victory over the Chargers.
Oh God, Colin, that'd be up to 4 wins, and we only have another 5 to go to hit that bullseye number 9 target. So I got distracted when you were talking about that because Elijah Moore of the Jets wide receiver, second year in the league, has asked for a trade this evening from the Jets. He's not happy with the offense. Anyway, back to this one. Kenneth Walker as well. Great. Not sure if you got into him, Colin, the running back who's stepped in after the serious injury to Penny. He's gone for the season. He scored a touchdown last week, touchdown the week before that, 110 yards combined last week. Again, another great selection by this Seattle team that are all rallying around the head coach, and a lot of points proven. They're saying now that Geno Smith is going to be the highly sought after free agent as quarterback next offseason if he's made available. They're saying, but Seattle will make sure he's locked down for the future because he is their future. But I am going to side against Colin this as much as I would like to see the Seahawks win. So we do hit that magical 9 number. I think the Chargers are going up against a defense that, there is some bright spots on the defense there, such as Wooten and other players who are doing really well, but overall, collectively, when it comes to playing games against expansive offenses, they don't match up well. We saw against the Falcons at home, they struggled, they lost the game. I think it's the same scenario this weekend. Chargers to roll on and get another win this weekend.
Yeah, Michael, I've said this to Colin, but, I think there's an angle here for Denver because I do worry with Russell Wilson being injured if you've got sufficient quality at the backup quarterback position. And now Seattle are kind of set with Geno Smith and everything. I really think they should reach out and see if they'll trade their backup quarterback to Denver to help them.
Do you want to stay on this broadcast?
Drew something or other.
Do you want to stay on this broadcast? Strike 2. Keep going. Anyway. We're previewing the Seattle Seahawks.
We are.
The LA Chargers. And hopefully, Mark, you're going to talk about the Seattle defense because I'm still waiting here.
Oh, please. No. I'm going to talk about the Chargers defense for a second because Colin is absolutely right in his analysis of JC Jackson. I mean, let's put the last game the Chargers played, Damari Mathis started to lead the lead in pass interference penalties in just one game, and he still wasn't the worst cornerback on the field because JC Jackson had an absolute mare. That isn't why he got paid squillions of millions to come into the Chargers and firm them up. So that is a serious concern, especially with some of the other injuries and the other people they're missing. However, I just can't see past how bad that Seattle defense is. I mean, they're entertaining, don't get me wrong. I think, the Lions and the Falcons are going to be our red zone teams of the century generally, but especially even this year, there's always going to be a bit of entertainment at red zone when we get into the witching hour, when they're trying to make a illogical comeback or just, give up massive touchdowns or score long-range touchdowns. But look, Austin Eckler's still there. He's the first player, I think, to get second player in NFL history to have 25 receiving, 25 rushing touchdowns in his first 6 seasons. He is that dual threat. They do have a speed issue, but there's enough talent, there's enough quality in that Chargers offense to take advantage of this Seattle defense, even though it is in Lumen Field, isn't it? It's up in Seattle, isn't it? Or am I? No, it's Inglewood. So actually, there's no such thing as a Chargers home game anyway, so it's all going to be Seattle fans there, let's be fair. Yeah, I just can't see past that. I can't see past that defense being exploited, so I've still got the Chargers to take Seattle this week. Although I see where Colin's going with it. There's logic. It's just... I'm stuck. Chargers.
He's wearing the shirt. I'm wearing the shirt. That was actually quite alarming on Monday night. That was the one takeaway I actually took from the game that didn't depress me. That never mind the amount of orange and white jerseys, and they were all Broncos jerseys in the crowd, the amount of empty seats in that stadium was alarming. And we can sit here and say, it was 5 o'clock on a Monday, lots of traffic. Bull. We seen it with our own eyes in February. They had a Chargers pep rally the night before the Super Bowl in Santa Monica, which is a 45-minute drive west. That team should not be in that city. That's a different conversation for a different broadcast. But luckily for them, they're going up against a Seahawks defense that has been in the bottom 5 of total defense all season. They see just 411 total yards per game. They're the third worst in the NFL because they let in over 27 points a game, and they're going up against the phenom in Justin Herbert on Sunday. I mean, it's great that Geno's done well. That's great. I think they're averaging about 24 points a game. The Chargers get over 30 in this game. They'll win this game comfortably. I really feel like this is the week where teams start to fall. And this is one of the teams that will. The Seahawks will start to go down a bit. They've done a very good job so far. They've done a lot better than I think a lot of people thought. But they're lucky in the sense that the NFC West is surprisingly absolute dirt. And we're going to talk about the NFC West now because we're going to talk about the Niners. And the Niners are hosting the Chiefs at Levi Stadium. And a lot of Niners fans had a fun time at their meetup in Leeds last week. There's a few Irish lads went over to that, so I had a really, really good time. And I know the Niners sent us some photos, and Mark is heading over to the Bay Area soon to get some Bay Area sunshine. Colin, bye week for the Niners? Because they've got more injuries in Craigavon Area Hospital up here at the minute.
They do, though. Apparently they have players coming back, and Trent Williams and Nick Bosa were participants in training today. Whether we will actually see them on the field is another question, and that's a big problem for the Niners. I think last week they had 7 starters out on defense, but the issue for them is they're going up against a Chiefs team with Andy Reid, who hasn't lost consecutive games since 2015. There's also the fact that Kyle Shanahan is 0-2 against the Chiefs, and multi-millionaire male model quarterback extraordinaire James Garoppolo is 0-3 against the Chiefs. And I do not believe that is changing this weekend because the Niners are too beat up. And I think that the Chiefs are going to get the victory. And looking at it right now, it is very difficult to look beyond the Bills and the Chiefs in the AFC.
All the talk is about this 49ers defense, whether, they've been very strong, they're number 1 ranked in the league, but it's the severity of the team in terms of all the injuries. But offensively this season, they've been very stop-start. I know Colin on the show the other day was talking about Jimmy's performance on Monday where he threw two picks in Atlanta. But even for where we saw Deebo Samuel in the playoffs last year, where he's so dynamic, I wouldn't say he's fallen off the cliff, but his numbers are so low this season. He's only got 3 touchdowns this season, 345 yards reception. He's only ran for 136 yards. From what we saw of him last year and all the talk in the offseason about how much of a dual threat he is, if he's not doing things, and Kittle essentially now turned him into a blocking tight end. He's not the player we were seeing last year, stretching the field down the middle, allowing for the players in the perimeter. And Ayak had a good game last weekend, but we haven't seen enough out of this team. And that's ultimately where I think this game is going to come down to who can put up most points. Mahomes has thrown 17 touchdowns this season already, 4 picks. Jimmy G has thrown 7. And they're struggling with running backs of injuries. They're playing guys. They brought in Marlon Mack recently. He's been released. They're just trying to get the right blend in at running back to kind of complement the offense in terms of having a passing game. Don't see how it's going to fit on Sunday. I think the Chiefs will rebound very well off last weekend's difficult defeat, and I think it's a bit of a blowout game, to be honest. I think the Chiefs will come back and win very well.
So, Michael, I was actually due to be in Santa Clara this week, and plans changed. And, there's a good side and a bad side to everything. The good side is it is nice.
You remain faithful to the Bay, Mark.
I will always remain faithful to the Bay. But, the good side is at least I'm in the same time zone for 4 consecutive days, which I haven't been able to say very often last while. And the bad side, however, is if I was over there, it wouldn't just be like give you an up-to-date report from training, as to who's practicing. Not, I might actually get a trial. That they're that injured and they're that banged up, especially on defense. If the 49ers were at full strength, I would give them a chance in this game. because I think their defense and the defensive scheme, play too high, try to limit Mahomes' capabilities, could work, get pressure on the interior. It could work. And on offense, yes, they've been very sporadic. They're teeing off on them basically on first and second down teams because they know and they don't fear Jimmy in any way, shape, or form. He's not going to get out of the pocket. They don't fear his arm necessarily. And that's why they've had to keep Kittle in. That's why, Ayuk had a great game last week, actually. But it is not the standard Kyle Shanahan offense where you could be attacked from any angle. They seem to get one good drive together, good lot of scripted plays, defenses adapt. Jimmy or Kyle, whatever way you want, the offense doesn't adapt and is able to adjust to it. It is far too stop-start and inconsistent. And yes, Trent Williams being out and injuries, but they're a mash unit. They're casualty. They're ER. Whatever analogy works. I mean, who was
Grey's
it I said
Anatomy.
mash to?
House.
And they looked at me like I was lost. Yeah, House. Yeah, kind of. Grey's Anatomy I like. That's a good one. They're too injured. I mean, at what point, actually, genuine question, at what point do John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan revisit from top to bottom their strength and conditioning team and their strength and conditioning approach? Because this is not the first year they've had this in San Francisco. I mean, depends on the injuries, but some of these are conditioning injuries. So that's excessive in 49ers land for a couple of reasons. Look, as I say with this game, they're too banged up. They've been too inconsistent. They were my Super Bowl pick. I've still got to stick with that. And I think they'll come better as people come back. But they're not going to beat the Chiefs this weekend. Chiefs all the way.
I think the thing they've got going for them is they could go to Barbados for a month and turn their phones off and come back and still have a chance of getting to the wild card in the NFC. That's what they have going for them at the minute. I think with Mahomes, he'll be haunted last week with that last play. You could see it in his face. The whole world was watching. And he bottled it. Bottled it twice in the game, but bottled it at the biggest moment. And it shows you the evolution of the Bills, that they believed in them. We talked about this on Monday. They believed in themselves, that they could go down, score, and come you on, Patrick. Come you on. And they got the better of him. And it's going to be, please God, we get the chance to see that game again at some point. I will pray this weekend, if I make it to Mass, to potentially see that happen. And that's where my analysis of the Chiefs stops. Travis Kelce's the highest touchdown scorer in the league. Great. Juju done well last week, and we'll leave it at that. Arik Armstead, Samson Ekbuman, Talanoa Hufanga, McGlinchey, and Shavarius Ward haven't practiced yet, and we can all sit here and say that Drake Jackson, Nick Bosa, Jason Verrett, and Jimmy Ward, who's playing a part with a cast, are back at practice. But how fit are they? How fit is Dak Prescott? We can talk about that on Monday when we see what the result is. I actually genuinely think they should rest the whole team and take the week off. They're wasting their time, and frankly, they're mismanaging their team if they go in there and try to win this game properly on Sunday, because they haven't got a chance with all those injuries. They might put up 14 to 21 points, but the Chiefs will have a day. If they are at a point like last week where they're down considerably against a team like the Falcons, never mind the Chiefs, Mr. Shanahan and Mr. Lynch should get on the phone and say, pull Jimmy, pull the starters, and take the week off, because they're wasting their time. Because realistically, where they are now in that division, they have a hell of a chance, whether they win this week or not. And also, one thing, I don't know if we'd said this, Brian, on the betting podcast, sorry for bringing this up, but we spent a lot of time researching this, as you can imagine. The Chiefs are only 2.5 in the handicap. I mean, I don't want to start going Sean Quinn, Anglo-Irish situation, put the house on it, but, that could be a talking point next week. Sorry to everyone in Cavan. Let's talk about Sunday Night Football. Steelers against the Dolphins. Colin, why is this game Sunday Night Football? Are you watching this game? Because I now work on the league full time, and I'm not watching this game. No chance in hell. Tell me why I should watch this game on Sunday.
Well, none of us gave the Steelers a prayer last week against the Bucs, and they went and did it, and that's the beauty of this league. That's why I don't think you can ever count anybody out, because time and time again we have seen surprises. I imagine when the TV schedulers look at it at the start, I mean, I'm sure they probably wish they could make changes earlier, perhaps, but you're talking about two storied franchises, and you're talking about a number of storylines here. You have Brian Flores going back to Miami and all that surrounds that. Everything he said, the league investigation agreed with, apart from the tanking allegations. Definitely nothing there. Nothing in any way, shape, or form. League looked into it. Fine, you can see the findings. There's also the fact that Minkah Fitzpatrick is going back there. And there's also the fact that the Dolphins are using this opportunity, as they are in prime time, to honor the one team, Mark, who did have a perfect season, the 72 Dolphins. The interesting thing, I suppose,
less games, wasn't it? Was it less games?
Fewer games, yes.
Fewer games.
There weren't as many teams.
I'm actually backing Mark up here for a second. I mean, fewer games.
Well,
and how many teams did they play with a winning record during that entire season?
Oh, here we go.
In the Super Bowl. That was
what's
it.
in front of you. You can only beat what's in front
Commanders, Cavan, 1972. Let's keep going.
There's I suppose been some talk this week around the Mike Shanahan tree, or the Sean McVay tree, or whichever way you want to look at it, but the struggles of those offenses, right? The 49ers have struggled offensively. The Rams have struggled offensively. The Packers have struggled offensively. The Broncos have, my God, struggled offensively. And some of that, I suppose, is the way in which the league has evolved, the way in which it has gone to the cover two, the two high shell, whatever way you want to term it, but essentially taking away the deep pass and forcing teams to go down the field, right? Take what's underneath, forcing you, instead of going down the field in maybe 8 or 9 plays, that it's going to be 16 plays. And they figure that there's more opportunities for takeaways, there's more opportunities for mistakes, there's more opportunities for their pass rushers, and so on and so forth. And that's some of what led to fewer points, less passing, etc., as teams try and react to that. And that will be interesting to see what happens. But the Dolphins, under Mike McDaniel, when Tua was in there, were maybe the exception to the rule, because they were so exciting. But then Tua got injured. Remember with the back injury that seems to have, again, the league, but we don't need to look into that. We threw some contractor under the bus and everyone else was totally fine and did everything proper and correct. But Kenny Pickett has been able to practice 2 days this week, even though Teddy Bridgewater, who was taken out, but again, didn't have a concussion, had to sit out. So there's all sorts of interesting stuff happening around that. Ultimately, if Tua is back, the Dolphins need a performance. The Dolphins should win this, but could magical Mike Tomlin work it again and the Steelers get a victory? Absolutely, but I'm going to say it's the Dolphins.
I think Columns wrapped this game up. What do we think? I'm joking.
So, Michael, you did ask, I know Columns kind of alluded to it, you asked why this game is on Sunday Night Football, because the league have come out and confirmed that they wanted it as a standalone game to allow the Dolphins to commemorate the 50 years since they went the unbeaten season. And it also would explain why the Eagles are on a bye week this week, because they're the nearest thing we've seen to the 72 Dolphins. So obviously they want to be able to celebrate as well.
We're on abroad. We have to remain impartial here.
They might even invite them down to the game, if some of them are down.
Jesus Christ. I mean, the Bills are in a bye week, mate. Come on.
Yeah, I know, but the Bills haven't been compared to the 1972 Dolphins on this show. The Eagles have.
Please, hold on. Who on this show has compared them to the 1970s? Come on.
You said it's very likely that they'll go unbeaten this season. You went through about
No, I said they could go unbeaten if they get past November. That's what I said. I never in any sentence compared them to the 1972 Dolphins. Now, how many games did they play in 1972? 12?
14, was it?
14. Okay. Well, if they win 14 games, we can start having the conversation. I never once said that about them. I'm high up in them because I've actually sat and watched them play, like we all have. Let's not spread fake news. All right. #fake news. Let's talk about the game on Sunday, the Dolphins against the Steelers, which I'm not looking forward to.
I'm looking forward to seeing Tua. I don't think Tua will be back in this game, and if there was any doubt around his fitness and his health, when he was playing, he was in good fettle and he was fit. We were enjoying watching a very expansive Dolphins offense. I think we'll see that on Sunday. I can't see how the Steelers can live with this Dolphins team. If Tua is on his game, I expect a comfortable win for the Dolphins team to celebrate the night that's in it, with the 72 team coming back and a few birdies in the background.
Okay, so the 72 Dolphins team won 14 regular season games.
How old are you? Mark,
games.
Did you graduate by then, or were you in?
No. I was, I was just coming into my first job, Michael, at that point. But they were 17-0. There's only one team that's ever gone 18-0, Brian, but we both know who that is. We just won't say what happened in the 19th game. So the 72 Dolphins, I did them a disservice. I think they beat there was more than one team with a winning record that they played that year, but they had a very, very weak schedule. But they are still the only unbeaten team. It is only right and proper that the league acknowledges it. That no-name defense and Don Shula coaching that team, only one team's ever achieved it. And achieved it over the 100-year history of the NFL, not just the Super Bowl era. So, definitely over the Super Bowl era. I don't think anybody did it before.
I know. Are we counting the 100-year thing? I mean, like, me and Colin could have suited up for some of these lads. Like, I mean, do you know,
Well, Super Bowl era, and we've had enough of them. 55 of them. Fair play, Dolphins. You absolutely have done it. You absolutely deserve to reflect on it. You absolutely should also remember it's nearly 40 years since you've actually been in a Super Bowl as well, and you wasted the best years of Dan Marino's career. But all well and good. You've got an exciting offense. You've got Jalen Waddle. You've got Taysom Hill, Tyreek Hill. And thank God you got Tua back, and we hope he's all well and good. Steelers deserve a lot of credit for last week, sealing the game, especially when Trubisky came in and sealed the game with a 3rd and 11, the 3rd and 16, I want to say. Or it was like 2 long 3rd down conversions to really seal up that game. That took guts, and that took some great throws. But I think I wouldn't necessarily say I'm neutral when it comes to Dolphins, but I think everybody wants to see Tua come back to form. They want to see that exciting Dolphins offense we saw in a couple of weeks, especially in that Baltimore game. And for that reason, let's go with the Dolphins to bounce back, give us a bit of excitement on Sunday night. And if we're talking about history, bit of excitement celebrating the 50th team before Monday Night Football, when Bill Belichick goes past George Halas for second all-time in terms of total coaching wins. So we rounded out with a bit of history there.
Mark giving away his pick for Monday.
I actually feel that, and I should have said this last Thursday as well, I don't think it merits a pick, this game on Monday. That's how poor the game is. I mean, the Patriots will win, but there's my pick.
Can't be as bad as Thursday Night Football, Michael.
Huh?
It can't be as bad as Thursday Night Football.
Oh, I think it will be.
Bill Belichick spoke about how good the Bears are for 7 minutes.
Yeah.
The longer Bill Belichick speaks about a player or a team and praises them, the more you know that he is being completely disingenuous. I think the 7 minutes might be a record.
I've been getting a lot of hate from Dolphins fans recently on comments.
Does anyone like you? I mean, Dolphins fans.
Here's the thing. I don't care. I like everyone. If people don't like me, that's honestly 100%. Couldn't care less. But I appreciate everyone who listens and watches to this broadcast. Really means an awful lot. Probably too much, but thanks a million, girl me Margaret. No, just people saying like, "Oh, you're very down in the Dolphins." I'm down in the Dolphins because of what happened with Tua, and we had an argument about this both off and on screen. I've had an argument with different people about this, very passionately. Somebody, it was like you, Colin, said there now about Tua. They wouldn't put him on, or we hope he's all right. I hope he's all right as well. No, that's all I'm going to say on that.
I think there are all sorts of questions that to be answered. But
absolutely, and it'll all come out on a cold Tuesday night in March next year, when nobody cares less, and that's the problem. That being said, let's look at this game. 2 elements. The first element is this: when you have Jalen Waddle on the field, when you have Tyreek Hill in the field, when you have all those players even behind him, even River Craycraft on the field, they have to try and double team someone. This offense, before people start saying I'm being biased against the Eagles, this offense is unstoppable when Tua is in form with these wide receiver cores. If they find a way over the next 13, 14 weeks to get it going every week, they could go all the way to Arizona and maybe play the Eagles or somebody else in the Super Bowl. That won't happen because they can't protect their quarterback. And Tua, maybe, hypothetically, we have no association with the NFL and we have no idea what the current situation is health-wise. We don't know what Tua is like. Hopefully, please Jesus, he's all right. But for me, they'll win this game more than comfortably. And who's starting the quarterback for the Steelers? Is it Mitch with the whole concussion situation with Kenny, or are we not sure at the time?
Looks like Kenny's going to play.
Kenny's going to play. Kenny, 4 interceptions in his first 3 games, 66% completion percentage rate. It's not bad. I mean, they have to fire him in. They have to give him 1 to 2 years. I mean, we were talking to people in Pittsburgh this week. They're very high up on him and they want to give him a chance. And I think that's the respectable thing to do, to give him time. I mean, is it the answer? We won't know until the end of 2024. The main thing is, after the late windows open, I'm going to watch the season finale of Bloodlands with James Nesbitt, and I can't wait to watch that, and I'll not be watching this. And if anyone spoils it for me, there will be no graphics. I'll never be on this show ever again. And James Nesbitt would play a good Bill Belichick. I'm going to leave it there.
I gave up on that program a few weeks back.
Dolphins are going to win, and I can't believe he gave up on Bloodlands. Great show.
Mark, can I make a quick point? We didn't get a chance to discuss another quarterback in the Florida area who today said he's no intention of retiring, Mr. Brady. I don't know if anybody saw his press conference this evening where the guy asked the question at the end about the fact that he goes, so when you retire at the end of the season, he went, I'm not retiring. Which is great to see. I hope he plays on. I
genuinely, and I mean, we'll give the bandwagon Bucs fan at the bottom here a wee chance to chat in about 5 seconds. I don't think he merits the talk of the day. Let him have his moment on a press conference and be, he'll be gone in March, or he'll go to Miami. Willie Frigg. If I'm Miami and I'm Mike McDaniel, I'm keeping to it 100%.
I mean, Brian, Mike makes a great point. We should never talk about a 7-time Super Bowl winner. We should talk a little bit more about Russell Wilson.
On a preview show for week 6 is what I'm saying.
The reality is, as well, just when we're talking about the Dolphins, we're talking about Tua. You mentioned Kenny Pickett. Michael, I want to keep saying that the Steelers' offensive line has seen too many episodes of South Park with Kenny Pickett's in, and they're acting like Stan Marsh and Eric Cartman. And when they look around, seeing him in another crumpled heap, they're going, "Oh my God, they killed Kenny!" But for his safety, I hope that offensive line decides to protect him a little bit more, and he also takes better care of the football. Be a good game. It'd be a good game. Brady's biggest thing was actually having to apologize today because he compared playing for an American football team to serving in the military, and he opened his press conference apologizing for that, saying of course I take the sacrifice made by the armed services seriously, and I shouldn't have made that comparison. I was lazy in my use of words. So that was more the bigger faux power, I thought, or the bigger story for me. Anyway,
if only he wasn't lazy enough to turn up to training last Friday on the walkthrough on Saturday.
Before we go, I'm going off to find out what this Kenny thing's all about. No, I didn't know what Mark was on about there.
Well, you're old. If you're saying that, you're old. Even I know what that is. Have a good week. Enjoy week 6.
I know the program. It's a very annoying program. Good night and God bless.
Lovely.
Bye-bye.
God bless. Good night. Good luck. Get out.